Welcome back to this special coverage of the ANC's Policy Conference as it comes to an end. It has been 6 days and this is the final day. We expect President Jacob Zuma, of course, to give us an overview. But right now I'm joined by political analyst Susan Booysen, who has been here since day one. She has enjoyed the cold weather and sometimes hot at times. I wonder whether that's an analogy of what's been happening in the commissions as well.
Hot and cold, definitely. That is the reports we get from various commissions. Sometimes we get fed the information, things are so placid, nobody's interested in debating, where is the ANC? Other times they are contesting about ideas, but it's really a few ideas here and there that grab the attention. Mm-hmm. And one of the lingering questions for me after getting a bit of feedback on the commissions is whether they have systematically mapped the road forward, for the ANC organizationally, and not just touched on a few aspects here and there. And the second one, whether they are really in command of the socio-economic issues of our current state and polity, whether they have made proposals at least, to fill in that policy gap that we see.
Because if anything, while this is an ANC policy conference and while the 2019 elections are about 2 years from now, this would be the bedrock of the ANC's manifesto come 2019. Of course, we're waiting for conference to ratify all these proposals or even overturn some of these proposals. But this is where the ANC's manifesto debate started.
Yes, indeed. That whatever comes in election campaign 2019 cannot deviate dramatically from what we see here. Of course, there are different approaches, emotional appeals to people. And that is something where I've also been wondering, as we listened yesterday to the arguments, proposed resolutions on organizational renewal. In the strategy and tactics document, in organizational building document, discussion documents, and probably in the commissions, we heard a lot about how it's necessary for the ANC to reconnect to the people. But at least from the briefings that we've heard so far, I have not been persuaded yet that the ANC is putting forward enough substance to make that reconnection, to regain the trust, to show, and that is where your previous discussion also fits into this, to show that they're making amends and can resuscitate the trust of people in the ANC, in government.
I guess it's not good enough to just say that, yes, we have faltered and we are committed to fixing it, unless if you have proper policies that show that this is how we're going to be fixing this. Like, for instance, now we're speaking to Phoebe Potgieter-Kubula about the Integrity Committee, which would be quite integral to the image of the, while resuscitating the image of the ANC. You know, when you speak to some politicians and some news hounds, they tell you that, you know, back in the 90s, the ANC was the voice of reason. When the ANC speak, there's no one else who can tell the truth better than the ANC. But now every time the ANC speaks, whatever they're saying is being second-guessed.
Yes, indeed. And I think, unfortunately, the ANC is to blame itself for much of that. Some of the policy proposals really give the impression of being on a merry-go-round, like one of these creations near the entrance where we come into the field, that play park, the little horses going in a circle around and around. We have heard some of these we must, we do, we shall before. And I really respect the reassurance that the next Integrity Committee will have sufficient powers. Why wasn't that committee given sufficient powers
in the first place?
When it was instituted in proposed 2012, instituted in 2013?
Actually, the other problem that I have with the makeup of the Integrity Committee is that they come from a pool of ANC stalwarts, ANC veterans. If anything at all, the ANC stalwarts and the ANC veterans have not only shown their colours, but have also come out to make proposals on who they support to become the leader of the ANC. And you look at the proposal of the Electoral Commission as well, the Electoral College of the ANC. They again will be part of that Electoral Commission. The makeup of the Electoral Commission will be coming from that pool. Now, how do you ensure that those people are not biased when it comes to dealing with issues of allegations, as well as those who want to stand for various positions in the party?
Of course, it is a question in the first place whether the current veterans were biased or whether they were taking, yes, they came out against the current President Zuma, but in the process, they were trying, to the best of my information, to uphold the principles and values of the ANC, something which we know is in contention right now. And that is where this new integrity committee, and we've heard that perhaps it will not just be veterans on there, but yes, veterans are the people who are a bit distanced from the current unfolding processes in the party. We've heard that it may not just be them, and they will have sufficient powers, more powers, but still, your essential question in the previous interview, I don't believe it's yet being addressed. What do you make if your own political principles, your top leaders, are the ones being taken to those committees? I don't think the ANC has found that answer, but it will be so important for them to get that answer in order to go forward with credibility and do that reconnection to people.
Just quickly, I know it's unfair to give you this now. We only have like less than a minute to do this. Today marks the end, or marks the start of the end for the ANC's current crop of leadership, the NEC, as well as the top six. Some would probably be re-elected at the elective conference. But it also marks the end of President Jacob Zuma's term in the ANC as a member of the top six. Since the unbanning of the ANC, he's been on the top six ever since then. And come 2017, the end of 2017, he steps down. One then wonders, what is President Jacob Zuma's legacy since the unbanning of the ANC and the current crop of leadership that he walks out with?
You know, that is a question that is such a difficult issue, not just to answer it, but for the ANC itself too. The presidency of Jacob Zuma has been so strongly associated with controversies, with scandal, with allegations, and with staying out of court on many of these allegations and charges that could be very indicting. And in a way, his legacy will have to be first to clear so much of what he left behind. He brought in 2007, his campaign brought promises of more radical, far-reaching transformation.
He was the people's president.
Of reconnecting, and that is why he got the upper hand over Thabo Mbeki. Those in the first term were water treading. They were not going anywhere, but not too bad. But then in his second term, things really went south, went vertical, and it is unfortunately much of that legacy that would have to be undone, and we will have to see an ANC that emerges strongly enough to address that and resuscitate its credibility. But the president, his legacy itself is not going to be one that makes the annals of history like that of Oliver Tambo.
Well, Professor Susan Booysen, thank you so much for your time there. Well, certainly President Jacob Zuma, if you consider that he's been on the ANC's top six since the unbanning of the party, well, since the first elective conference of the party, after its unbanning, one then wonders, President Jacob Zuma has seen the ebb and flow of the party. He's seen the party's numbers increase. He's seen the party's number dwindle, even under his watch. And, you know, President Jacob Zuma always speaks about he will give a tell-all book. He will write a tell-all book. And we could only wonder what will be in that tell-all book and whether he will take any accountability or liability for what the ANC currently faces. Balisat's back to you in studio.
Thank you so much. We'll be crossing back to them, I believe, during the next hour here on Morning Live for the latest on the final day, of course, of the ANC's National Policy Conference taking place in Nasrec here in Johannesburg.